Hello there internet gearheads, welcome back to the Gear Slob channel, and we are having a look at two of the heavyweight contenders in the EDC knife world. And in the red corner we have the Benchmade Bugout, weighing in at not very much. I will put the weights on the screen there. I think it's about 55 grams or something. And in the blue corner, the Hogue Deka, which weighs in at a little bit more than the Bugout, but those reasons will become clear very shortly. Now these two knives share a lot of similarities. They're both made in the USA. They both have sliding bar locks. The Deka has what they call the able lock, and the Bugout has what they call the axis lock. They both deploy with thumb studs. Both the pivots run on phosphor bronze washers. And as you can see, they're roughly the same size. Pretty much the same there on the handles, pretty much the same length on the blades as well. Let's have a look at these two knives and see what the difference is in them are. The Deka has G10 scales that have milling there on the sides, a nice texture, and chamfering along the edges. There's a choil where your index finger naturally lands when you grip the knife, and it feels very comfortable in hand. The Bugout has FRN, or Grivery scales as they're known, and it has a very neutral profile that works pretty well, I would think, for most hand sizes and shapes. I wear a large, extra large glove and I get a full 4-finger grip on there, no problem. Now these Bugout scales are very light, but for me they feel a little bit cheap and unfinished and rough on the edges. And there's also quite a bit of flex in these scales as well. If you have a look here, I can make those touch pretty easily on both sides. Now I'm really not a fan of the Grivery scales. They just feel very cheap and unfinished and light. For me, the G10 scales on the Deka are just much more comfortable, and sure, you do sacrifice a little bit in weight, but when you're dealing with knives this light, the difference is fairly negligible. So in terms of scales, I'll give this to the Deka. The Deka has a clip point style blade in CPM 20CV blade steel, with jimping at the top there, which is also available in a compound Warncliffe grind if you're into that. The Bugout uses S30V blade steel, which is in a drop point shape. And there's no jimping on the blade itself. There is some on that pivot cage there, but it's fairly ineffective. I find that when I'm gripping the knife, my thumb tends to hit the top of the blade there and doesn't really land anywhere near that jimping. So out of the box, this Deka was extremely sharp. But the main aspect where the Deka just smokes the competition here is the edge retention on this blade. The 20CV on this is just incredible. I've cut a lot of cardboard with this knife, and if it just starts to show any signs of dulling at all, I just strop it up pretty quickly and it just comes right back. The S30V on the Bugout, it's okay. It came quite sharp out of the box. I've sharpened it a couple of times. It's, when you compare it to the 20CV on the Deka, it's kind of hard to really get that excited about. It's okay, it does the job, it sharpens up alright. In terms of looking at the blades and the steels and the edge retention, again, this one goes to the Deka. So this is one part of the comparison where I think Benchmade and the Bugout have got it right. The clip on here is deep carry. It's small and discreet, and I think it looks really good. The clip on the Deka, though, it looks like it was a bit of an afterthought. It stays in your pocket fine, which is, I guess, the main function of a pocket clip after all. But that branding on there kind of looks a bit cheap and tacky. But to Hogue's credit, on the version 2 of this knife, they have rectified, well, there's two main issues that people had with the version 1 of the Deka. Number one being the pocket clip. They've on the next version, the version 2, they have got a deep carry clip on there, much along the lines of the Bugout. And they've also done away with quite a bit of the hardware that's on the scales there. I think, actually, let's have a count, see how many screws we've got here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, including the pivot, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 screws including the pivot. So I believe they've done away with a couple of those body screws, and I think that that cover for the pocket clip if you're going to mount it on the left side. So that's another improvement there. If you're looking at this version 1 and the Bugout, that clip I think is great, and they got that one right. So one aspect I haven't mentioned is price, and this Bugout is an international limited edition, and I paid, I think, $268 for it. The Deka, I think, cost me $275, so pretty similar pricing there. If you're looking at the basic blue Bugout, that retails in Australia for about $240. And you think, well, yeah, that sounds cheaper. But if you're anything like me and you find that you really don't like the Gryvery scales, you're going to want to swap them out. And there is a thriving business in aftermarket scales for the Bugout. One company that does a lot of them is Flytanium, and I usually have these on this knife, and it just improves the feel of it just so much. It adds about 10 grams of weight. It's pretty negligible, but it feels so much more solid with these G10 scales on there. Of course, if you're getting scales, replacing scales, it's going to end up costing you more money. From memory, these were about $80 Australian. So when you factor that in, the Deka's already got G10 scales. You're getting a lot more knife for your money. There is one thing I forgot to mention about the Bugout, and when I was in the process of changing the scales, swapping the Flytanium scales over for the original ones, I found that I had a broken Omega spring. Now, this is something I've read about on forums and things that people experience, and I never thought that it would happen to me. But there you can see it's broken in that part there. That's the one for the other side. That's an intact one. And it's, yeah, just right at the bottom there of the bow. It's just, it's cracked. But yeah, and the mythical broken Omega spring. So that, it does happen. I managed to pick up a pair, or a replacement pair on eBay, and yeah, the replacement one seemed to be a heavier gauge spring. So that just feels a lot stiffer. But yeah, I never thought that I would be the victim of a broken Omega spring, but there we are. So yeah, back to the video. Just another little interruption just during the editing process here. I've got this mini Bugout that's got Flytanium copper scales on it, as you can see. And I don't really carry this a great deal, but my son likes to fidget with it. And he was doing that a couple of weeks ago and discovered, as you can see, another broken Omega spring. This one's just snapped clean in two. So yeah, out of the 3 Benchmade knives I've got, that's 2 that have broken Omega springs. Alright, back to the video. So you might prefer that neutral profile there of the Bugout handles. And they, you know, it is quite comfortable in hand. But it's so thin that just having a slightly thicker profile of scales on there, it's really not going to make much of a difference. For me, the superior blade steel, the G10 scales, make the Deka just a no-brainer. And now, particularly as Hogue have released the version 2 of the Bugout, the deep carry clip and the reduction in the hardware and the handles. And they've also got some new versions of the Deka coming out with the very sexy blade steel Magna Cut. So some pretty exciting options available there. If you've been thinking about getting one of these knives, choosing between the Deka or the Bugout, my advice is to go for the Deka. You just get a lot more knife for your money. Unless you absolutely have to have the thinnest, lightest profile possible knife, sure, go for the Bugout. It does what it says on the tin, I guess. This one is Cerakoted, and you can see that, hopefully the camera will catch this, that some of that coating has already worn off there on the swedge. I haven't really used this intensely. I wouldn't say I've used it a great deal. I've taken it to work a few times, cut a few boxes, that type of thing. I haven't carried it every day by any means. And yeah, that wear on the blade there is quite disappointing. There's a few other little spots there as well. But yeah, the Deka, for the money, you get a fantastic knife for it. That's 20 CV blade steel on there. It's just fantastic. And it's a winner to me, particularly with the version 2, and also, you know, you're getting the new versions coming out in Magna Cut as well. If you've made it this far along in this comparison video, comparing the Benchmade Bugout and the Hogue Deka, thanks a lot for watching. If you agree with my comments or you disagree and just think I'm full of crap, well, tell me why in the comments, and do all those other YouTube things, or, you know, whatever you want to do. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. But anyway, thanks for your eyeballs on this one, and we'll see you on the next one.